That's really the whole movie. It's this weird, bizarre thing from 1983 that I think is hilarious. And
I think it's funny. I think it's actually not as funny as I remembered it. Remember when I first saw it, it was several years ago. And I did have the similar reaction that I had now where I'm like, this is pretty good. And then you get to the Superdog stuff and it's like the smile from my face was just like wiped off. And I'm like, I'm embarrassed to be watching this. This is too stupid. But up until then, it's mostly funny. There's two big gags, and they're both big ones that just really don't work for me. It's Bob after he drank the beer, just the visual gag of him with the giant body. And then it's Superdog. Those are my two biggest complaints.
Those ones are definitely probably my least favorite gags. Some of my most favorite ones, which I didn't mention, the one at the very beginning, it was the MGM lion.
Oh, God, that's great.
Instead of the roar, it burps, and the camera pans, and it's just like it's just like a cutout with an actual lion, and they're standing there like...
They're playing with his tail.
This heavily sedated lion.
No, that is hilarious stuff to me.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's one of the better scenes of the movie right there, I think.
And then there's also a scene, I didn't really understand it, but when Pamela is meeting with her uncle and her mother, who married her uncle after her father was murdered, they're eating dinner, and it's just KFC. And I thought, the only thing that's funny about that is that they're really rich and they're eating KFC. Or is it that in Canada, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in Canada, if you're going to get together, like if you're going to have a family gathering, you go out and you buy KFC. It's just like a thing. Like if you have a family gathering in a park, it's KFC. If you have a bunch of people over at your house, it's KFC.
I've been at giant family reunions because my father is one of 13 children, and I've been to at least a few of them where we're at a park and someone just brings like 8 buckets of KFC or whatever, yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, I think I enjoyed all of the gags, except really the Giant Bob one and the hose head one.
Those are the ones that are just too silly for me. Like, they'll work for a lot of people, but this movie doesn't... Like, what I really like about this movie is just the interaction between the two, mainly Moranis and Thomas. They're so great how they just annoy the hell out of each other, but they're also, like, on the same wavelength. Like, they're always thinking the same thing.
Yeah, now, see, that's kind of where the movie faltered for me. For the most part, I liked the way that they interacted with each other, but at a certain point, it just gets too, like... sibling rivalry, where they'll be like walking along.
There's a lot of, it's an hour and a half of it as opposed to 2 minutes at the end of a television show. So, I think you could say it wears on you a bit, but that stuff mostly works for me.
It's funny, though, because I also looked up reviews for the movie, and Gary Arnold, in his review for the Washington Post, wrote, "Neither triumph nor fiasco. Strange Brew leaves plenty of room for improvement. But I hope Thomas and Moranis get the chance to demonstrate that they've learned a lot from the mixed assortment of nuttiness in their first movie comedy." And then Jay Scott...
I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's an unreasonable review.
I agree with it. I agree with it. And then we have the Globe and Mail, which is a Toronto newspaper.
Right.
Jay Scott wrote, "What's terrific about the Mackenzie brothers is their offhand depiction of two English-Canadian working-class dimwits. And what's terrific about the movie is its equally offhand surrealism." I don't know if I agree with him. I think he's probably just jerking it a bit, because he's like, it was filmed in Toronto by Canadians, Oh, I forgot one. I think this is the one that's probably the closest to what the movie is for me.
Yeah.
Well, in some ways. But Janet Maslin, I think that's how you pronounce her name, for the New York Times wrote...
it's a famous movie critic.
Oh, really? Okay. Listen to this. She goes, "Anyone who's partial to the Mackenzies' humor doubtless has a fondness for beer. The price of a ticket could buy enough beer for an experience at least as memorable as this one." And
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, and I see what she's saying, and I think in some ways I agree, but would I have gone to see this in theaters when it came out? Or a drive-in? Probably not. But I'm glad I'm watching it for like $2.50.